From a pharaoh screaming for backup in the middle of his own burning camp, to 5,000 chariots slamming into each other on a single riverbank, to a lie so enormous it got carved into solid stone and believed for 3,000 years. This is the Battle of Kadesh explained, a battle so famous that we actually have eyewitness accounts from both sides, and they do not match. Not a little, not around the edges, at all. And I want you to know the ending right now, because it's the whole point of this video. Egypt's greatest pharaoh, the man whose face is on every temple wall from Nubia to the Delta, the one in the chariot with the bow and the crown and the six-pack, he lost. He walked into a trap. He watched his own army get shredded in front of him. He barely got out with his life. And then he went home, and he told everybody he'd won it single-handedly, and he carved that story onto every flat surface in Egypt. And it worked. For 3,000 years it worked. So there are two Ramesses. There's the one on the wall, calm, gigantic, glowing, a living god crushing his enemies. And there's the one who was actually there, a man not yet 30, absolutely terrified, watching everything fall apart. Same guy, same day, two completely different faces. Today we're going to look at both of them. But let's rewind. It's the Bronze Age, around 1274 BC, and the ancient world has two heavyweight champions. Down south you've got Egypt, old money, ancient even by ancient standards. Pyramids that were already 1,000 years old when this story starts, which is a genuinely insane thing to say out loud. Egypt is wealth, gold, grain, and an unshakable belief that its king is literally a god walking around in sandals. Up north you've got the Hittites. And honestly, the Hittites got robbed by history because almost nobody knows their name. They ran an empire out of what's now central Turkey, from a mountain fortress capital called Hattusa with walls you could see from an embarrassing distance away. They were the other superpower. They had iron before it was cool, and they had the single most feared weapon system of the entire Bronze Age. Chariots. Heavy ones. 3 men to a car instead of Egypt's 2, which meant one guy drives, one guy holds the shield, and one guy just gets to focus entirely on stabbing you. And squeezed in between these two empires is Syria, which brings us to the town everybody's about to die over. Kadesh. Kadesh sits on the Orontes River, and it is not impressive. It's not a wonder of the world. Nobody's writing poems about the skyline. It's a walled town on a mound, but whoever holds Kadesh controls the road, and whoever controls the road controls the trade, the tribute, and the buffer zone between the two biggest militaries on Earth. So the disrespect that started this war came in 3 flavors. Number 1. Egypt had held northern Syria back in the glory days, and losing it felt like losing family property. Number 2. A client kingdom called Amurru had recently flipped its loyalty from the Hittites over to Egypt, and the Hittite king took that about as well as you'd expect. And number 3, and this is the real one, Egypt had a brand new pharaoh with something to prove. Meet Ramesses II. He's young, he's aggressive, he's the son of a soldier king, and he's spent his entire childhood being told he's divine, which, does things to a person. He's got a jaw carved out of the concept of confidence and a completely sincere belief that the gods handle his personal logistics. He's not a bad general. That's the part everyone gets wrong about him. He's just a man who has never once in his life been told no. And across the board from him, meet Muwatalli II, king of the Hittites. Muwatalli does not want a fair fight. Muwatalli thinks fair fights are for people who lose. He's a planner, a schemer, the kind of commander who wins the battle 3 days before it starts. And he has been watching Ramesses march north with the patience of a man who has already dug the hole. Ramesses brings roughly 20,000 men, split into 4 divisions, and he names them after gods, 'cause of course he does. Amun, Ra, Ptah, and Set, marching in a long column up through Canaan, division after division, strung out across miles of road. Say it with me. Strung out across miles of road. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. And that's where things get interesting. Because as the Egyptians approach Kadesh, two men from a local nomad tribe come stumbling into the Egyptian camp with the most wonderful news Ramesses has ever heard. They tell him they've deserted the Hittites. They tell him the Hittite king is a coward. And they tell him Muwatalli's army is nowhere near here. It's way up north near Aleppo, over 100 miles away, too scared to come down and fight. Ramesses hears this and, I cannot stress this enough, believes it immediately. Sir, two random guys walked out of the desert and told you exactly what you wanted to hear. That is not intelligence. That is a fortune cookie. But he's a god, right? And gods don't get lied to. So Ramesses takes his personal guard and the Ammon division and races ahead to grab the town before the Hittites can get there. He crosses the river. He sets up camp northwest of Kadesh. Behind him, the Ra division is still crossing, spread out and vulnerable. And the Ptah and Set divisions? Miles back, hours away. Ramesses has just walked 1/4 of his army into the exact spot Muwatalli picked for him. Because those two nomads were plants. Muwatalli sent them. The whole Hittite army, thousands of chariots and infantry, is not 100 miles north. It is sitting on the far side of the city, hidden behind the walls of Kadesh itself, close enough to hear the Egyptians pitching their tents. Oh boy, here we go. Now the Egyptians finally catch a break, and it comes way too late. Some soldiers grab two Hittite scouts sneaking around the camp. They question them, firmly, and these two crack and tell the truth. And the truth is that the entire Hittite army is right there, right behind that city, watching. There's a scene carved on a temple wall of this exact moment. Ramesses is sitting on his throne, and the look on his face is the look of a man realizing he has made an enormous mistake in front of a very large audience. He sends a rider screaming south for the Ptah division. Get up here, now. He's too late. Because Muwatalli has already released 2,500 chariots, and they don't hit the camp. They hit the Ra division, which is still strung out mid-march, half of it on one side of the river and half on the other, marching in a nice neat line with no formation and no shields up. It's not a battle, it's a car crash. Hittite chariots come through the Egyptian column at full speed and just erase it. Men break and run. Some of them run north, straight toward the Pharaoh's camp, screaming, and they bring the entire Hittite chariot force with them. And now, right now, is the moment on the temple wall. This is the frame Ramesses will spend the rest of his life selling to the world. The Hittites smash into the Egyptian camp. The shield wall of stacked supplies goes down. Tents burn. Officers are running, and in the Egyptian account, Ramesses looks around and realizes he is alone. His army has scattered. His officers are gone. And he says, out loud, to the god Amun, the ancient Egyptian equivalent of, seriously? Me? After everything I built for you? And then, in his version, he gets in his chariot with nobody but his shield-bearer, a man named Mena who is openly panicking, and his two horses, whose names, and I love this so much, were Victory in Thebes and Mut is Content. And he charges the entire Hittite army, alone, 6 times, and he personally breaks them and drives them into the river. Now, that is a phenomenal story. Here's what almost certainly actually happened. The Hittite chariots got into the Egyptian camp, saw an unguarded royal treasury just sitting there in the open, and did what soldiers have done in every century of human history. They stopped to loot it, and while several thousand of the most dangerous men in the Bronze Age were busy stuffing gold cups into their tunics, Ramesses got his personal guard together and counterattacked into a disorganized mob. And then, he got the luckiest break of his entire reign. A second Egyptian force, an elite unit that had been marching up the coast on a completely separate route, arrived at the camp at the exact right moment and slammed into the Hittite flank. Not divine intervention, just a well-timed unit and a scheduling accident. He survived. He genuinely fought, but he did not do it alone. Real quick, before this gets worse for the Pharaoh, if you're into classified history, the kind where the official story and the actual story are two different documents, hit subscribe. Agent Fox needs backup out here. Okay, back to the disaster. Because it isn't over, Muwatalli still has infantry he hasn't even used. The next day, the two exhausted armies line up and fight again, and neither one can break the other, and both of them are now looking around going, okay, so how do we leave this without admitting anything? They agree to a truce. Ramses turns around and goes home. And remember what this entire war was about. Number 1, take the city of Kadesh. Number 2, hold northern Syria. Number 3, keep Amurru loyal to Egypt. He got none of them. Kadesh stayed Hittite. Northern Syria stayed Hittite. And Amurru flipped straight back to the Hittites the second the dust settled, and got a new king installed by Muwatalli personally. By every measurable standard, Ramesses lost. But here's the crazy part. That's not what history recorded, and that's because of what he did next, which is genuinely one of the most impressive things any ruler has ever done. He went home and he built a story. And the propaganda campaign came in 3 flavors too. Number 1, he commissioned an official long-form account, what we now call the poem, telling the whole thing as a personal epic where the Pharaoh, abandoned by everyone, wins the battle with his own hands. Number 2, he commissioned a shorter, punchier version, the bulletin, the highlights reel, easier to carve and easier to repeat. And number 3, and this is the part that actually made it stick, he put both of them on the walls. Karnak, Luxor, Abydos, the Ramesseum, Abu Simbel, at least 5 major temples, in enormous relief carvings, with a giant Ramesses towering over tiny broken Hittites. Scale is an argument. He's not bigger than them 'cause he's bigger than them. He's bigger than them 'cause the wall says he is. And he had 66 years on the throne to repeat it. 66 years. He outlived his own sons. He fathered something like 100 children. He lived to around 90 in an era when 40 was a good run. There was nobody alive at the end of his reign who could remember a time before the story was true. That's the thing about propaganda. It doesn't have to beat the truth. It just has to outlive it. So here's what I actually want to know, and I want you in the comments for this one. If you fight a battle and you don't win it, and you go home and tell a story so well that the entire world believes you won for 3,000 years, did you win? Is Ramesses II a fraud, or is he the most successful general in history for winning the only fight that turned out to matter? Tell me. I read every single one. But wait, there's more. 'Cause this story has an ending that is so much better than the battle. 15 years later, in 1259 BC, Egypt and the Hittites signed a peace treaty. Muwatalli was dead by then, and the man on the Hittite throne was his brother, Hattusa III. Both empires had a new problem in Assyria, and both of them had run the numbers on another Kadesh and decided, yeah, let's not. That treaty is the oldest surviving international peace agreement on Earth. It's got extradition clauses. It's got mutual defense. It's got a no invading each other clause with actual gods listed as the witnesses. It worked so well that Ramesses eventually married a Hittite princess, and his queen Nefertari and the Hittite queen were exchanging polite letters like 2 women whose husbands had finally stopped being idiots. A copy of that treaty hangs on the wall at United Nations headquarters in New York, right now. Today. The oldest peace deal we have, from 2 kings who tried to kill each other on a riverbank. And this is the part historians always skip. That treaty is exactly how Ramses got caught. Because Egypt carved its copy in hieroglyphs. But the Hittites kept their copy on clay tablets in the archives at Hattusa, and in 1906, archaeologists dug up that capital city and found the archive. Thousands of tablets, an entire empire's paperwork sitting in the dirt for 3,000 years, waiting. And in those tablets is the Hittite version of Kadesh, where Muwatalli wins, where the Egyptians get ambushed and mauled and go home with nothing, where there is no lone pharaoh charging 6 times into an army. For 3 millennia, Ramses had the only surviving account. He wasn't lying to us. He was lying to the record, and the record was a monopoly. And then somebody found the other guy's homework. Both of those faces were real. The god king on the wall and the man in the burning camp who thought he was about to die. Ramses just made sure that only one of them got a temple. And there's one last twist, 'cause the universe has a sense of humor. Ramesses II's throne name was Ozymandias. The Greeks garbled that into Ozymandias, and in 1818, an English poet wrote a sonnet about a shattered statue lying face down in the sand, with a boast on the pedestal that nobody's around to read anymore. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. It's the most famous poem ever written about the futility of exactly this. He is more famous today for a poem about his ego collapsing than for any battle he ever fought. And yet, walk into Abu Simbel this afternoon and there he is. 40 feet of him. Still enormous, still winning, still carved into a mountain in the middle of a desert 32 centuries after a bad afternoon on the Orontes. The lie is still standing. We just finally know it's a lie, and somehow that makes it more impressive, not less. We live in his invention. Every leader who has ever lost something and immediately announced a victory. Every regime that got to the archive before the historians did. Every version of events that survived only 'cause the other side's records burned. Ramesses figured out the whole game in the Bronze Age. Control the surface everyone reads, and outlive everyone who was there. He almost got away with it forever. So tell me in the comments, the man or the monument? Is Ramesses history's greatest liar or history's greatest winner, and are those actually different things? This is exactly the kind of argument this channel exists for, and I read all of them. And listen, if this story got you, smash that like button, 'cause it genuinely tells YouTube to show classified history to more people, and this channel runs on it. Then subscribe, 'cause next time I'm opening the file on the superpower that ruled for 400 years, outlasted Rome itself, had the best cavalry on Earth, and then got completely erased in under 20 years by an army with no armor, no siege engines, and no empire of its own. Nobody saw it coming, including them. You do not want to miss that one. Now click the video right there, and I'll see you on the next mission.